Hello, hello. Welcome to Excuse My Frenemy, the podcast where we talk about some of the big topics in sports, where two fans of rival teams try to put their sports allegiances aside, but will probably fail to do so. Thank you for taking the time to give us a listen. My name is Sean Brady, and at this point of the podcast is when I usually introduce my co-host, Katie Cabrera. However, life has gotten in the way. Her employer feels that they need her more than I do for this. How dare they? But anyway, she's out this week, so I had to kind of go to the bullpen. And when I say bullpen, I mean a bullpen of one, because there's only one other person I know that would even fit this kind of show. This man is a comedian. He's a writer. He's a producer. I know he's worked with the likes of Katie Nolan and Jon Stewart, and those are just the ones that I know about. But ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for my guest host this week, Mr. Benari Poulten. What is going on, my man?
Hey, it's been a very quiet sports week, so it's pretty chill all around. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate being your bullpen of one.
Hey, like I said, I'm not saying you were like the only option, but you were the only option. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Nobody else was as good. Let's put it that way.
It was a little bad.
Okay, I was going to say consider you a friend, but I think I burned that bridge. But let's move on. Okay, so folks, this week is pretty much going to be all NFL because we're going to basically be talking Super Bowl week, so you got to do NFL. But we're going to start with a topic that is not necessarily Super Bowl, but we hinted that we were going to talk about it last week, but this week we're going to dive into it a little bit, and that is the Brian Flores lawsuit against the NFL. So for those that don't know, Brian Flores was recently fired by the Dolphins, and he has since brought forth a lawsuit, specifically the Dolphins, the Broncos, and the Giants, alleging discrimination regarding interview processes and basically racial discrimination. So some of the accusations in here, he's accused the Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, of attempting to incentivize him to tank by offering him money for every loss. He has also said he had bad interview process with the Broncos where they were hour late to their interview and allegedly appeared to be hungover from drinking the night before. And he's also accused the Giants of basically of a sham interview with them just to meet the compliance of the Rooney Rule. That's the one that I think has some meat to it because of the text messages he got from Bill Belichick. So, Benari, I know he used to be for your team, the Patriots, which, by the way, everybody should know, Benari is New Englander through and through, so there is a lot of prejudice in some of his answers. I'm going to warn you right now. But Benari, what are your initial thoughts?
That's right. Boston strong, baby. So when the Dolphins fired Brian Flores, I'll start here. When the Dolphins fired Brian Flores, one of my good buddies is a huge Dolphins fan. And so we go back and forth all the time because he just likes to give me shit about, your team's so dirty and, screw your team. And when the Dolphins were winning, it was under Brian Flores. All of a sudden, Brian Flores comes in and it was the 1-2 punch. They started beating us with Brady, and then Brady leaves, and then they're just kicking our ass, right? And Brian Flores gets fired, and I remember we were texting back and forth, and I'm like, something's weird here, though, right? Like, that's weird. He had a winning record. I know they just missed the playoffs, but there's a lot of mitigating circumstances with that. He had 2 seasons where they had winning records, and the season before that, he had refused to tank. And so that club really, in terms of the locker room, the players seemed to really like him. Now, a lot of what was coming out of Miami beat reporting at that time was that he was a dick and that management couldn't stand him and he rubbed people the wrong way and he was just kind of a dick. And so that kind of made a little bit of sense. But in terms of his coaching ability, it seemed like they had the right guy. And so when he got fired, something seemed off. And a couple of days later, of course, this lawsuit then drops like a bombshell. And, honestly, reading through it, love to say like, yeah, that's just normal BS or that's just sour grapes. But this looks like he's been putting up with a lot for a while and has been, it didn't seem like he didn't deploy the nuclear option overnight here. He kept the receipts. And it looks like this is brewing for a while. And just reading the story about John Elway, like seeming to show up, hungover, I could see a drunk John Elway showing up to a meeting he doesn't care about to check a box. I mean, as soon as you read that, no one was doubting that story. I don't think anyone doubted that story, really. I'm sure the tipping point was, you get a text message from Bill out of the blue. And also, let's just talk about this. Who's letting Bill Belichick text? Who is letting that guy text?
Oh my God. When I heard this story, that was the first reaction I had, which besides the actual seriousness of the lawsuit, but my brain, kind of like yours, instantly went to what's funny about this is everybody involved in this, Bill Belichick, the old man with the texting the wrong person.
Putting a bow on everything, but the whole thing could be summed up, with Bill Belichick texting, sorry, looks like I effed up here.
Like, my bad.
Sorry, just accidentally gave you all the ammunition you needed to burn the NFL to the ground. Whoopsie. So I don't know what's going to come out of this. Honestly, I think there'll probably be some sort of settlement. Nobody in the NFL wants us to go to discovery. Can you imagine what kind of text messages and emails are kicking around that have nothing to do with racial discrimination? Just the shadiness and the cesspool that is the NFL, whatever else they're trying to hide. They don't want any of that shit coming out in discovery.
Oh yeah, Exhibit A of that argument is the Washington Commanders and their new name. All the stuff that's going on there. There's a perfect example of why you don't want the stuff coming out.
Yeah, they were just in there. That cost John Gruden his job when they were digging around for stuff on Dan Snyder. So nobody in the NFL wants to go to discovery. So I'm sure there'll be some sort of settlement. Honestly, I think the bigger issue here is Ross offering was it $10,000 a game
100 grand.
I'm sorry, $100,000 a game, $100,000 a game to Tank. That's probably the worst thing in this whole lawsuit when you start peeling it apart, because then you get into all these guys have stakes and they all have shares in like FanDuel and online betting and all this other stuff, which is another huge moneymaker. And we can also talk about how are owners and coaches and any of these players allowed to also have shares and stakes in like betting companies like FanDuel, when they can literally control the outcomes of certain things in games. So when you're looking at all those prop bets and you're looking at those Vegas numbers, and you're like, wow, how did Vegas get those numbers so close? I don't know. Maybe someone was like, hey, Cooper Kupp is absolutely getting at least 7 receptions this game.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Because everybody wonders how does Vegas get it right all the time? Well, maybe they're getting some inside information from some people that may have an interest in their success.
But everyone can agree it's a lot easier to bet on the outcome of a game if you're losing. It's much harder to say, okay, we're definitely going to pull it out by 3 points, or we're definitely going to, the kicker's going to hit this 50-yarder, things like that. Those are harder to control. But you can control, say, your kicker doesn't make that field goal, or you drop that easy pass over the middle, or don't make that interception when you have the chance. Those are the things you can control. And that's where you don't want people digging around too much into that either. So I think that paying him money to try and tank that season is probably going to end up being the biggest thing to bite them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like, if it can be proven, I think that would be the most damning thing. But that's the hard part, is tanking's not new. This has been going on forever, and it's not just football related. So to think that the owner is not smart enough to make sure there's no paper trail seems kind of far-fetched to me. Now, maybe he texted Bill Belichick, and that was his downfall.
I was gonna say, yeah. Hey, Bill, just offered him $100,000, and he said no. Should I up it? What do you?
Yeah, think? That's where he's going to get caught up. It won't be the owner; it'll be somebody else slipping up. But I think that part with Bill Belichick is worse.
Well, see, I mean, that part is kind of verifies what everyone kind of knew, which is that a lot of these interviews are a sham, because they have the Rooney Rule, which was implemented in 2003. And the Rooney Rule was implemented for a reason. If people don't know, the Rooney Rule was put there. This is under the Steelers organization, the famous Rooney. And
well-intended rule, by the way.
It's a well-intended rule. And, the Steelers have a great coach in Mike Tomlin, who's also was a minority candidate, was proven himself more than effective and solid as a coach. But the Rooney Rule was implemented because there was no real pipeline for other. Basically, you had a problem. The coaches were predominantly white, and then the pipeline was sons and nephews and brothers of coaches who were already coaching. You basically got interviews and you got a job because you were the son or the brother or the cousin of a good coach. So you look at the Shanahan family, even the Gruden family. Bill Belichick's got 2 of his kids on the coaching staff right now for the Patriots. And Josh McDaniel finally got out of there because he's like, oh, looks like I'm not taking over the Patriots anytime soon.
You know what we call that? We call that the good old boy system.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is.
Yeah. So if you have a good old boy system and everybody in that system is a good old white boy, you're not going to diversify. You're not going to diversify anytime soon. So they implemented, which was a well-intentioned rule, that you had to have at least, I think, one. It was at least you had to interview at least one, but it might be like 3 or.
Initially, it was 1, but I think now they have adjusted it where you have to have 2. And now they've even gone so far as to incentivize if you hire a minority candidate from outside the organization,
exactly,
you could get some compensatory picks.
And also organizations that cultivate, yes, they started throwing compensatory picks and they started incentivizing things, which, again, it's 2022. The fact that we're still at the point where you need to incentivize teams to diversify and to, at this point in 2022, do we really think that there aren't enough black guys out there that know football? I mean, let's be honest. That's when you just look at it at the face of it, it's like, it's just racism.
Well, you want to know the bad twist in all this? The Dolphins, of all people, just hired Mike McDaniel, which, if you see Mike McDaniel, he looks like me with dark hair. And I'm about the same color as a light bulb. But yet, because his father is black, therefore he is considered minority and biracial, they get compensatory picks for hiring a guy that looks like me after they fired a guy who's actually full-blown black.
The Texans, I think the Texans probably have to be the most egregiously obvious team here. Like, as soon as all this came down, the Texans were like, we don't want any more controversy. We better hire a black guy. And they just were like, where's Lovie Smith? Get him in here. We know that guy can do it. Here, come in. But the other thing that became obvious over the last couple of years was that they would bring in a black coach. And usually they bring in a black coach to a shitty team. And that coach would have to work extra hard to turn things around. And it sometimes takes time. And they'd give him about 2-3 years, and then they'd fire that coach. And just as things were in good shape, look at the Browns.
If they're lucky, they give him 2-3 years. Normally, it's 1 year, at least recently.
They might just give him 1 year, and look what happened with Hugh Jackson, over the Browns, And right before, just as he turned that team around, they're like, "Yeah, get out of here."
Let me ask you this. Speaking of this, the one and done stuff, and people think, "Oh, it's not big." Let me ask you this, Benari. Coach of the Arizona Cardinals, Cliff Kingsbury, right? Do you know who the coach was before Cliff Kingsbury?
I surely don't. I know Bruce. Right. I know there was someone between Bruce Arians and Cliff Kingsbury.
There was. It was Steve Wilkes, who, by the way, just I think got picked up as Carolina, and they went 3-13. And as soon as they had the number 1 pick, it was, "Yo, Steve, get out of here. Let's get another guy in here that actually could build the organization." At least that's the message that was sent.
Yeah. And I don't know if this means anything, but, Kyler did unfollow the Arizona Cardinals on Twitter. Now, I don't know if that means –
Man, why you got to bring up old stuff? No, I'm kidding. That's just him wanting to get paid. At least I'm hoping that's just him wanting to get paid.
You better hope that that's all that means. Look, the Bengals, who are in the Super Bowl this year, the first time they're in the Super Bowl since '88, something like that.
Yeah, it's 30 years.
30 years. But the joke with the Bengals prior to that, I mean, they became kind of a joke of a team, but they had made the playoffs 7 years and they were one and done. They had an 0-7 record or something. But the thing that was overlooked was they kept making the playoffs, and they kept making the playoffs under Marvin Lewis, right? Mm-hmm. And he was a terrific regular season coach. He still has a winning record. He has an over 500 record. He hasn't gotten a job since the Bengals let him go. Now, I get why they did. After 10 years or whatever, we need to bring home. That's fine. But why? Now, I'm not a huge Marvin Lewis defender, but look at what that guy was dealing with all those years on the Bengals.
He was basically, and I hate to phrase it like this, but let's be honest, it is what it is. He was like the black Jeff Fisher. Like Jeff Fisher, you were not going to lose very many games, but you weren't going to win a whole lot either. You'll probably make the playoffs, but you'll probably be done in the first round.
But how many different teams was Jeff Fisher allowed to coach?
And that's the point.
And you know who else had a long time record of getting to the playoffs but never bringing home the big game? Andy Reid, who finally got himself a coaching job on a team where his one problem, time management, was solved by his quarterback who doesn't have a problem with time.
Yeah.
So
13 seconds.
But prior to that, like Andy Reid had a postseason problem as well. So when you start making one-to-one comparisons to the types of coaches that have been either one and done or who never got another job after they got let go from a team, you start going, well, why did that guy get why did Gase get so many different chances? He's verifiably the worst coach. Probably
his eyeballs make him the worst coach. He's scary.
he's possibly like the all-time worst coach. And that guy was getting jobs left. He was like, oh, Dolphins, oh, the Jets, oh, we're going to pick him up and, Dallas will bring him on and coordinate. That guy fell out of bed and was getting jobs.
Like, because when they first said Flores was being fired, obviously you weren't on the podcast, but I told Katie, like, I thought he was going to be the ones to stick around, but I guess you really can't overcome a 1-7 start, even though they finished with a winning record. Now, after this lawsuit's come out, now it makes a lot more sense because I was genuinely confused of why he got fired. Now, granted, the second half of the season, they kind of beat up on a bunch of scrubs to get to the record they had, but they were losing to those scrubs at the first half of the season.
Well, but they also set a franchise record of seven wins in a row. Only team ever to go to have like 7 losses and then 7 wins. Also, if you look at what you want in a season, though, you want your team to, as the season goes on, get better. So if you start poorly, but you get better over the course of the season, that means the people in that organization are doing something right because they are fixing the problems. What you don't want to have happen is, and by the time they got to the end, unfortunately, Buffalo is just a juggernaut. But some of the team, the AFC is a notoriously difficult conference to make the playoffs. There's plenty of, you look over at the NFC and teams are making it with like, oh, we're 8-8, or now we're 9-8 now. But there were teams with losing records in the NFC who were making it. Looking at you, Seattle.
Hey, be easy. Don't know. Like I want Katie to come back next week at some point. Be easy.
Well, I'm just saying, over in the NFC, you could have kind of a mediocre record and it was no problem. In the AFC, if you weren't winning 11 games, you almost didn't have a chance. Yeah, but there were plenty of 10-win teams that missed the playoffs in the AFC, and that's kind of where the Dolphins, were falling. So they were kind of 1 or 2 games away from turning that corner, but it looked like this year they had kind of turned the corner. And honestly, if they had I'm sorry, if you're looking at the organization, I like Tua. I've been rooting for Tua. But, you got to be looking over at Joe Burrow and be like, we could have had Joe Burrow. Or, you're looking over and you're like, oh, Justin Herbert. We passed over Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Tua is unfortunately the Dolphins' version of Jimmy Garoppolo with the Niners, except with less experience, which is even worse. Yeah. But to your point about the NFC, AFC, all that other stuff, and I'm going to use both of our teams in this example. My Cardinals, the year they went to the Super Bowl, they were dubbed to be like the worst team to ever make the playoffs. Because I want to say they were either 9-7 or 7-9, but they were dubbed as being like the worst team to ever make the playoffs just because they won their division. On the flip side of that, the year Tom Brady went down, your team still won 10 games and missed the playoffs. I specifically remember. Or did they win 11? It might even been 11.
They were 11. So the year Tom Brady came back, they went 10-6, and then Baltimore knocked them out because Brady was still hurt and that team was kind of a mess. But the year before, the Matt Castle year, they went 11-5 and they missed the playoffs. Thanks to the Dolphins, by the way.
So, but you brought up the Texans earlier, and I want to hammer home a little bit on that because I don't know if you've seen the statement that Flores and his attorney put out after they hired Lovie Smith. The statement says, Mr. Flores is happy to hear that the Texans have hired a black head coach, Lovie Smith, and Mr. Flores' goal in bringing this case to provide real opportunities for blacks and minority candidates to be considered for coaching and executive positions in the NFL. That sounds great, but then they kept writing. However, We would be remiss not to mention that Mr. Flores was one of the 3 finalists for the Texans head coach position, and after a great interview and mutual interest, it is obvious that the only reason Mr. Flores was not selected for his decision was for his decision to stand up against racial inequality across the NFL. That is where I think they went a bridge too far. And I'm going to tell you why. Lovie Smith was already part of the Texans organization. He was their associate head coach. He was their defensive coordinator. He knows the system. The first sentence of that statement is great. The second sounds like sour grapes, especially when you come out saying, hey, this isn't about me getting another job. This is about improving it for all of us. And then here comes a person who got the job, and that, like you said earlier, it might be primarily because of the lawsuit itself, and yet you're just coming off as spilt milk because you didn't get the job.
I mean, I think it is, but I think it falls under the category of a good defense is a good offense. He's not getting another coaching job. This is what he has done. What he has done with this lawsuit is basically, and I think everyone kind of in the NFL knows it as well. This is what you do when there are no longer any more options or viable options in the NFL.
Oh, he did the coach version of Colin Kaepernick.
He did the coach version of that, which is just like, okay, I'll take it now because we're not going to move forward and I'm done. So as soon as he filed that lawsuit, his coaching career in the NFL was done.
Yeah.
Patriots fans. Patriots were hoping he was going to come back to the Pats. We were definitely looking forward to like, okay, well, we lost Josh McDaniels, but let's bring Brian Flores. Maybe he'll be the future guy. We do not want it to be Steve Belichick. If the future of our franchise is nose picking, mullet headed Steve Belichick, we are in big trouble.
But wouldn't that be sweet though if he did come back, and of all people, it's Bill Belichick that hires him?
Yes, that would be hilarious. I would love every second.
Which is probably why it won't happen. Which, by the way, somebody needs to get a hold of Bill's phone. Because, like I said, the tanking, that's nothing new. I mean, for God's sakes, the Philadelphia 76ers turned trust the process as their mantra for like 5 years. So this tanking is nothing new at all. But the interview sham, like you said, everybody knows what's going on, but this is the first viable proof that, they were just checking a block. And that's not good.
Yeah, and I think that what has to happen is, look, if you know how much time and energy goes into preparing for interviews, especially if you really want the job. You know, you're sitting there, you're not. Well, that's if you're interested. Well, exactly. John Elway is just like, boom, do some shots, head to the strip club, and then like you roll into the meeting whenever you're done. And
your candidacy depends on how long you can hang.
That's right. I think though, in terms of a good change, I'll be curious how long the Texans keep Lovie Smith as the coach. Are they gonna? I mean, the Texans did not have a good year. All right, Texans need to, and they got some big problems brewing in the organization that need to be fixed.
And that is also back to your previous point about basically setting these guys up for failure. David Culley, like he went 4-13 in a season where he did not have his quarterback because last time I checked, Deshaun Watson might still be a criminal. Yeah. So, I mean, he was set up for failure, and they still ran him out of town. And by the way, that's after he takes over when Bill O'Brien runs the team basically into the ground. Right. But I can't be too mad about that because that's why we got DeAndre Hopkins. But I digress. But that's an example of these guys, as bad as it looks, there's some validity to them not getting fair shakes.
So I want to see how long will Lovie Smith be the coach there? You give him 3 or 4 years to turn the organization around. Okay, now we're talking. But if he's another one of these one and dones, and hopefully everyone moves on and forgets next year, then we'll see what's cooking. But I think big changes have to happen. I think he's got now out in the open. It's good that the owners are kind of on the defense for a little bit. I mean, these guys are making money hand over fist, and the way that they run, it's hard to think of a more corrupt overall organization unless you're talking about FIFA. Just in terms of backroom deals, in terms of what everybody knows the score is versus what their public perception is. I mean, we know it's dirty. We know this is a dirty organization. I mean, we're watching grown men slowly murder themselves on the field for our entertainment. just what they've buried alone in what we know about traumatic brain injury. We know that the NFL is dirty. So
yeah, I was sitting here trying to think of a worse example than FIFA, and the only two that I could think that even come close, but they're still not as bad as FIFA, is maybe the Olympics and and the Tour de France.
Sure. And guess what those both make? Money.
A lot of money. Everywhere except in the U.S.
Yes, but internationally makes a ton of money for people. So if it makes money, it is going to be probably dirty.
I'm still holding out hope that John Gruden wins his lawsuit because, like you said, they'll have to do discovery on all those 600,000 emails, and they'd have to release that. So I'm praying that John Gruden wins his lawsuit just for that.
Yeah, I mean, and there you go. And meanwhile, Dan Snyder's still sitting there with his club that he thinks a name change is going to make everyone forget that he's just a corrupt mofo.
That situation is just as bad. It just another dime drops every other month. It seems like of how bad that organization is.
Can we talk about something else?
Okay, let's move on to a topic that I know you are dying to talk about. And it just so happens that you get to come in right as this topic comes up, and that is the retirement of the GOAT himself, Mr. Tom Brady. I would go through all the accolades, but there's so many, we don't have enough time in the podcast for all the stuff. So I'll just hit the highlights. 7-time Super Bowl champ, which, by the way, that's more than any other team. Because remember, right. Extra one with the Bucs. And 10 Super Bowl appearances, 5 Super Bowl MVPs, 15 Pro Bowls, 3-time MVP, most touchdowns, yards, completions, attempts, blah, 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 blah. The first player to win a Super Bowl in 3 different decades. And he's the first quarterback to start and win a Super Bowl for both the AFC and NFC team. So, at the risk of running out of time on the podcast, Benari, what are your thoughts on the retirement of Tom Brady?
First off, it's obviously bittersweet. I won't miss Tom Brady and I are having to be the same age, and so it was always a weird thing to turn on the TV and just hear people. And we've lived very similar lives, but. It's just very weird. I
think he's. I was gonna say. I think he's winning in the looks battle. If you guys are the same age, just saying.
But it's very weird to turn on the TV and every commentator just like and to have a 44-year-old man just still have value in society. It's just a crazy thing that someone this old can still actually function as an athlete and a human. What a tremendous thing Brady's doing, just getting out of bed in the morning at this age. So I won't miss that.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, that's how I feel about LeBron, because I think I'm like a year older than him. And every time they talk about how old he is, I'm like, now wait a damn minute.
I got to say, it's the one time that men actually understand what women have to go through all the time when, it's like any woman over the age of 21 basically has the same thing. Oh, you're a woman and you still have value to society and you're in your late 20s. How amazing. So I feel
yeah, congratulations.
I guess if we have to, I empathize is what I'm saying. I'm trying to be an ally, but
which, by the way, excuse my friend, me fully endorses the female success in the world. Don't take our sarcasm as us saying that we don't support females.
I don't. I'm saying not only that. I'm saying, wow, it's really shitty what women have had to put up with, and now I understand because
and if they work for Dan Snyder, what they're still putting up with. But anyway,
yeah, what they're still putting up with, and but with Tom Brady. What an honor to have watched his career from the beginning. As a Pats fan, it was tough to let him go, but we still, while he was playing, went over to the Bucs, and then I had 2 teams to root for. And he brought Gronk with him.
You were one of those.
There's no way.
I'm cheering for Brady.
There was no way I could stop. I had been wired for 20 years to do it, and I was like, okay, I'm cheering for 2 different. And he went to the NFC. Thank you. So I don't have to I had my game, and for a while. the best days, the best Sunday football would be like the Pats game would be on at 1, and then the Bucks game would be like a 4 o'clock, 4:30 game or something like that. Boom, back to back. Just a whole day of just, it's fantastic.
I'll stick it in your veins, huh?
Right in my veins. But to watch him evolve over time, and other people have made this point as well. If you split his career in two, just the first half of his career and the second half of his career, it's still a Hall of Fame career.
Oh, yeah. He's a 2-time Hall of Famer.
He's a 2-time Hall of Famer. And when you start adding up the amount of postseason games he's played like an additional 2 seasons just in the postseason, not even including the bye weeks. If you include the bye weeks as like a win, he's got another 12 wins under his belt. So it's actually him retiring and giving his career sort of a sense of finality allows us to kind of take a step back and actually appreciate what we had witnessed. Because for a long time, and I would say for at least through 2006, Brady was, if this is possible, was definitely underappreciated for what he was doing as a quarterback. He was called a fluke. That first Super Bowl, he was called a fluke. Then he comes back, and they don't make the playoffs next year, but he statistically becomes a better quarterback. Then he and Patriots win back-to-back Super Bowls, and he's still it's still like, okay, I don't know, maybe this Brady has something.
Which, by the way, that's the last time that's happened. Nobody's done it since then.
And no one's done it since then because it's really freaking difficult to win 1 Super Bowl, never mind back-to-back Super Bowls, never mind win 7 Super Bowls. And so then it became like, okay, maybe there's something to this Brady guy, but he didn't have the weapons, so they give him the weapons. Then we got the Randy Moss years and the Wes Welker, and they go that 18-1 season has got to be probably the most infuriating what if for New England fans. And I know that's like, whoa, you went undefeated and then lost a Super Bowl, but like that was at that point, no one knew how long it was going to last with Brady. No one knew how long any of this was going to last. And so this was the shot at immortality. Okay, we go undefeated. Now you have to respect us. And of course they lose that one. They have a rematch with, he loses an entire year the next year with a leg injury, comes back and gets them back to the playoffs. They're back in the Super Bowl 3 years later. Yeah, they lose. And then everyone's talking like Brady's done. He was kind of, he started off strong, but it was the Belichick system. And you say that enough to Brady, and it kind of pissed him off. And then they brought in Jimmy Garoppolo, and he was like, I'm not going anywhere. I've seen this story already. So he kind of stepped his game up. And, of course, they did the ultimate, which was Deflategate. Because, there had been lots of talk with Spygate, all this stuff, and a lot of the shadiness had fallen on Belichick. When they went after Brady, he took it. It's kind of like that Michael Jordan meme of, and I took that personally.
Yeah,
like
you come at the king, you best not miss.
and they missed, and they missed big. He won that year, and they didn't win the next year, but then he goes back, wins again, and that I will say this: I think that Falcons Patriots Super Bowl is probably my top favorite Super Bowl all time. That's I think my favorite Brady performance. Because that was – the team did a phenomenal job. Look, the defense had to come back and make a whole bunch of stops. But that was a masterpiece by Tom Brady. And that's where I think everyone could see on display what we for over a decade had been saying about this guy. Like, no, this guy is something else. He's never out. You can't count him out. This guy – no one makes mid-game adjustments like Tom Brady. No one sees the full game like Tom Brady. No one – makes miracles happen like Tom Brady. And we've been saying this for years. And in that Falcons game, it was like, oh, you let the door, you open the door, he's going to walk through it. And you make a mistake, he's going to make you pay for it. And he did. And that to me was his masterpiece. That was, and it took the entire team, but it took Brady as the sort of on the field general to make that happen. And then there was just, the Rams game, the Rams Super Bowl after that was kind of like, icing. And of course, the Philadelphia one, he goes 3 years in a row in the Super Bowl. Win, loss, win. That loss to the Nick Foles Eagles, Tom Brady threw for over 500 yards. He set a Super Bowl record in the game that he lost.
Oh, folks, I wish you guys could see the video of Benari just loses his mind. The hands are going up. He's like, can you believe it?
Still not over it.
Yeah, I will disagree with you on the Falcons Super Bowl being his best one because, and this is the only reason why, if Shanahan runs the ball, that doesn't happen. That is literally the only reason I would say that. They run out of time before they could come back. Now, I will say, maybe was the Rams, their first Super Bowl against the Rams, was that his first or second one?
So the first one is also, I would say it's an underappreciated masterpiece from Brady because that was the game. That was the greatest show on turf.
I almost said what the one where Vinatieri won it.
So those early games, look, my favorite game is probably still the snow game. You all call it the tuck rule game, but we call it the snow game because not only after the tuck rule, Vinatieri has to kick like a 47-yarder in a blizzard, and then they have to go to overtime, and then Vinatieri has to do it again.
Oh, nobody remembers that. The game was over after the tuck rule. Nobody knows what happened after that.
That game was far, far from over. So
which in the spirit of the show, I'm going to get your blood boiling. That was a fumble. I don't care what they say. That was a fumble.
All I know is they changed the rule after that year. So whatever it was that year, it was a tuck because they had a rule for it and they changed it. So if that happens today, yeah, absolutely, you're right. It's a fumble. Luckily, they had a tuck rule in place that made it not a fumble. So,
okay, so I want to get your thoughts on a couple other things, and these are to me are all no big deal, but because it's Tom Brady, it's a big deal. The first one, his goodbye message or his retirement speech, or whatever he put on Instagram, Twitter, or wherever he put it. No mention of New England. Big deal, no deal, somewhat of a deal.
So I think number one, his that's a guy had to put out a statement because his retirement plan was leaked too early, and it was probably leaked by the organization he thanked in that Instagram message. So I'm pretty sure Tampa Bay was kind of like, "You're what? We literally have no chance if you leave." So thank you. Like we have no backup plan here.
Which, by the way, when that leak came out, I kind of threw my hands up and says, "Great, now he's going to come back out of spite just to prove everybody wrong."
So my second point here is I think he's like 98% retired.
That was the next part. The rumor mill of the Niners so
there's a couple
maybe
of
interested in acquiring his rights.
Well, they could acquire his rights or just have an open spot. I think there's a couple of things here. He can't make a move till San Francisco makes a move. I don't think
he still technically belongs to the Buccaneers, so there would have to be a trade of some kind, correct?
It has to be a trade, or the Bucs would have to let him out. He would have to come out of retirement. They would have to let him out of his contract, the way the Pats did for Gronk.
You have to be released.
You have to be released, and
as of now he's still a Tampa Bay Buccaneer.
Exactly. So to me, this seems like he's done. He's come to the end. Giselle has finally won that argument. She's been trying to get him to retire for 10 years. And he was like, yeah, as soon as I suck. And he's just never going to suck. I don't know. If that guy wanted to play till he's 55, I believe he could do it. He's got Magic Alex down there with his like TB12 Jamba Juice and, he's doing alligator tears. I don't know what the guy's doing. I know he doesn't eat strawberries and I know he doesn't drink coffee. But whatever he's doing, it works. So, he can go open his chain of TB12 wellness centers and make lots of money that way and go – to the French Riviera and vacation and have a lovely life and not have to do anything ever again. But
they got enough money. They're not going to the French Riviera. They're going somewhere more remote. But I see your point.
You go very. I'm sure he's got several islands that no one knows about except for Giselle and
Actually, those islands probably belong to Giselle.
That's what I'm saying. Giselle's got a couple of islands. And I think Tom Brady has like a hall pass with one team. Because his hometown team he grew up loving, his childhood hero Joe Namath played for him, the San Francisco 49ers. And he's made no bones about it. And I still believe to my bones. When Bill Belichick traded Jimmy Garoppolo, he traded him to the San Francisco 49ers, and I think for only one reason. I think Brady was trying to leave even way back then, and Bill Belichick sending Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers was the only way he could cockblock Brady from going to the 49ers. And he probably kept Brady on the Pats for another 2-3 years there.
So assuming that's true, does that mean Belichick is just mean, or is he a genius? Because he got more Super Bowls out of that.
Why not both? I think he's a mean. I think he's a mean genius. I think he's absolutely a mean genius.
So I don't think the Niner thing is going to happen. the whole point of them trying to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo is so they can free up cap space because they still have to pay Joey Bosa, Deebo Samuel. Those contracts are coming up. You bring in Brady.
If only there was some kind of all-star quarterback who's known for taking a hometown discount so you can give him weapons around him.
He ain't taking a discount anymore. He's done taking discounts. He took discounts when they had no receivers in New England.
See, here's where the rest of the world fails to understand what New England fans have known about Tom Brady. If he wants to do something, it ain't about the money. He and Giselle have plenty of money. I think he would pay San Francisco to play for them for a year. All he needs is a team that is, say, I don't know, one game and a quarterback short of the Super Bowl, which is exactly what San Francisco is right now. And by the way, you bring him over there, he's going to bring, I don't know, his best friend Gronk with him, and they already have an all-star tight end. And gee, does Tom Brady have any experience playing with like two Hall of Fame all-star quarterback, tight ends, two tight ends set there?
Man, I don't think Gronk can play no more. I think that man is like one hit away from being in a coma.
But you put him on but Tom Brady says, "Hey, do you want to play with me and George Kittle?" Gronk goes, "Okay, where are we going, Tom?"
It's like the commercial, "Ma, where's my football pants?"
Yeah, where's my football pants? Plus, there's another guy who's recently retired, who's a Bay Area kid, also grew up loving San Francisco. A little guy by the name of Julian Edelman. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure
too.
1,000%. It would be like Anchorman, where Tom Brady just gets on the conch, like, "News team, assemble!" All I know is that Brady likes his safety blankets. He likes his friends. He doesn't even need to throw to Edelman. He just needs to know that guy, that squirrely guy, is there, and he can throw to. You give him Deebo Samuel. I mean, you give.
He would love to play with Deebo. I confess, he would love to play with Deebo.
Okay, you give him a guy like that, and then you give him and now he's got like two tight ends who are just monsters. I'm telling you, man, he would play for like he would play for the league minimum if it's just for a year and one more Super Bowl, and to do it and retire with the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we're in that wonderful period right now where anything is possible. So as long as, until the season starts, I think there's a chance that it could happen. The first thing that has to happen, though, he can't kick Jimmy Garoppolo out. He can't do that again. They have to make the move on Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy has to be moved and taken care of. Now, a spot is opened up in Tampa Bay, so that could happen. But maybe they send him off.
That would be so mean if they send him to Tampa for Tom, because you weren't obviously on the podcast last week. Tampa had like half their starters are free agents, and I'm willing to bet half of those guys showed up because Tom Brady was there. So you skid Jimmy Garoppolo, those cats are gone.
I think what would be interesting to me is kind of like an NFL league-wide shuffle. You move Russell Wilson over to like Tampa Bay or something. You put him there, and like say Jimmy goes over to Seattle, and then I don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to end up, but I don't think it's going to be Green Bay. Put him over.
Last week we broke down where we thought quarterbacks could end up, and I had one for Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Aaron Rodgers that I all thought were just comical, but they actually make sense. And I had Jimmy going to Green Bay because how awesome would that be if he won with Green Bay after Rodgers left with those weapons? So I had Rodgers, I think, going to Seattle of all places.
Yeah, sure.
And then I had Russell Wilson going to the Saints. Now, that was Alvin Kamara arrest. But I said the only holdup there is who the hell's going to be the coach. So, but that's where I had them all going. Like you said, I had them shuffling with each other's spots.
So I think what will probably end up happening, more likely, is there'll be some sort of shuffle. Then once all that clears out, then San Francisco can make a deal, and Tom Brady can make his decision if he's going to come out of retirement and wants to go. But if Tom Brady wants to go to San Francisco, they'll make it happen.
And what's the first domino is what it comes down to.
The first domino is Jimmy has to be gone. That's the first domino.
I mean in the whole league, not just like with the Brady night, like where does Rodgers go? Is Wilson staying? Like one of those dominoes I think has to fall first.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think because it's such a house of cards, the last piece is Brady. And Brady can make up his mind in September, for crying out loud.
Actually, I'm willing to bet that'd be part of the deal. If he comes back, it's going to be along the lines of, there is no training camp for me.
And I'm bringing my squad with me. And I'm telling you, I'm just telling you right now, breaking news, which is not news at all. This is just pure speculation. But breaking news right now, where Brady goes, I guarantee Gronk, and if it's San Francisco, I guarantee Gronk and Edelman.
At what point does Gronk look at Tom Brady and be like, damn it, you need to retire for the both of us?
I don't know. I don't think Gronk's like that. The only thing Gronk loves more than his mental health and physical well-being is playing with Tom Brady.
I think professional wrestling is somewhere up there too, because I think he would do that if he was given the opportunity.
I think he would go professional wrestling. Maybe that's like somewhere in between. But when it comes, I think Gronk absolutely looks at Tom Brady. He's just like, that's his kryptonite. He's like, where he goes, I go.
Next topic, which is kind of the whole point of this NFL heavy theme, it's the game itself. So for our regular listeners, you should know I did get a hold of Katie before we did this recording and asked her, what are your thoughts on the Super Bowl? And I got a one-word response back. She just said Rams. And Benari, you don't know, but she's a West Coast gal. She's a Seahawks fan. She lives in the Bay Area, but she's like born and raised in LA. So she's all up and down the West Coast. So any of those three teams, she's going to go for anytime. So my response to her one word was like a vomiting emoji, and then she responded with LA and 3 exclamation points. That was the extent of all our analysis before the show. So let's save the predictions for the end, because I know I have my thoughts on how this game, what the keys are, but what do you think is like the biggest one or two things that's going to determine the outcome of the Super Bowl?
Well, let me just start by saying that I think both of these teams are really fun to watch. I play fantasy football. I may have had a couple of these players on my team.
Man, I can't even get a league invite. What the hell?
But this is one of those years where, like sometimes you have really good teams and you have like scrappy teams and like, they're all in on just defense or they're all in. Look, I think Aaron Donald deserves a ring. I think that defense is top notch, but they have a great offense now too. I think Cooper Kupp I think league MVP should be Cooper Kupp this year. I think rookie of the year is Jamar Chase. And I think that I don't really see I know how it goes. I know that a QB is probably going to win it. And if it's a QB, it should be Tom Brady, but it won't be. But it should be Tom Brady. And if you're gonna go QB with Rookie of the Year, it's probably gonna be Mac Jones. Even though I think that like both Waddle and Jamar Chase in their respective positions had better seasons. I think Waddle, unfortunately, Waddle like set a rookie record for receptions, and Jamar Chase has just been a monster this year.
If you took Jamar Chase out of it, I think it would be Diggs, the corner out of Dallas. He would have given my vote. He would get my vote, but that's assuming you took Jamar Chase, because I think Jamar Chase, by landslide, anybody votes against Jamar Chase, your right to have an opinion should be revoked.
Yeah, and I just think it's like I watch these games. It's like I see it with my eyes. He is just emphatically an unbelievable player, and he's a rookie, and he's just going to get better. He's unbelievable to watch.
He's breaking Jerry Rice records, which were theoretically never going to be broken.
And Cooper Kupp, I've been a fan of Cooper Kupp, for about 3 or 4 years now, just because I've been playing fantasy football and waiting for a breakout year. And of course, who knew that giving him Matt Stafford as his QB would be the secret? Like, holy cow. This guy.
I don't think it was much Matt Stafford as it was just not.
Or just not Goff.
Yeah, not Goff. Anybody but Goff was the secret there.
Anybody but Goff was the secret. So, I think you have some really compelling storylines. I think Cincinnati has a great storyline. I think LA has a great storyline. And I think those players and I think the coaches have interesting storylines. So I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. The things to watch, the keys to the game, if we're looking like what's going to decide this game, I think it's going to be whether or not, can Jalen Ramsey shut down Jamar Chase? Can you stop, can Aaron Donald get to Joe Burrow and force him into a mistake in crunch time? I think the Von Miller, you watched it in action at the end of that, the San Francisco game, where it came down to you had Aaron Donald and Von Miller in Jimmy Garoppolo's face, and he throws up, a goose egg right to Jalen Ramsey. The three best defensive players were in on that play when it counted most.
They were revving it up at that point, yeah.
So if it's close enough, if the game is close enough where it's going to be decided by a defensive play like that, well, my money's on Aaron Donald and Von Miller and Jalen Ramsey. Now, if early on in the game, Burrow can get it to Jamar Chase and he cuts right and just scorches Jalen Ramsey for like a 53-yard touchdown early and sets the tone in the game like that, I think LA is going to have a tough time catching up to them, because one thing that Cincinnati has that LA doesn't have right now is that Cincinnati kind of has that playing with house money attitude.
They got nothing to lose.
They do not care. They do not care. And that's kind of dangerous. I think LA has something to prove. LA, the last time they were in the Super Bowl, they did not have a good performance, and they did not put on the show that they can put on.
To be frank, in that Super Bowl, neither team put on a good performance, but because that was like the ugliest Super Bowl ever. But you're not going to say that because you're the fan of the team.
You mean that great defensive masterpiece by Belichick?
It's bad. That Super Bowl was bad. When even my wife looked over to me like the third quarter, was like, "This has kind of been a boring game."
Here's how much that sticks in LA's craw. The only player to actually score a touchdown in that game was Sony Michel. And LA went out and got him as soon as he was on the market.
Oh, yeah. So
I think they still have a little bit of a complex about that. I know that McVay, they're going to have that in the back of their head. So yes, they have the experience. And I think LA is going to be coming to it as like, we're wise and we're battle tested. We have the Super Bowl experience, but they also have that we can't screw up again mentality. Whereas Cincinnati's like, we are just happy to be here. Holy, are you kidding me? Like Joe Burrow's like, it's my second year. Jamar Chase is like, I'm a rookie. And these are like, when I say they are fresh out of college bowl games, they are literally fresh out of college bowl games. Jamar Chase last year was playing a college bowl game.
I mean, yeah, it's Burrow's technically his second year, but he missed half of last year, so he's still learning.
He's still learning. So, I think, and they have a kicker who's just right now looks like he's just got ice in his veins.
Also a rookie.
So they're a really fun, young, we don't know better kind of team. So I think they have that great kind of energy. Now, LA's coming into it with experience and talent, and that's also and the one thing they do have going for them is Matt Stafford has absolutely crawled, scratched, and just maneuvered his way into this position to finally get to a Super Bowl. Being given the opportunity to get out from under the crumminess that is the Lions. And, we'll see. I think he's also got something to prove. So I think he's also kind of happy to be there and like, I've earned this spot. I think Matt Stafford might be a little dangerous. The problem though is if he wants to play hero ball, that's what's going to cost him the game. It's like you need to step back now and be a game manager and just move the ball down the field. Don't try and win it on one play. And I think that he might get lulled. If Cincinnati can lull him into hero ball, they're going to have a problem.
I think if it's a close game, Stafford is a lot like Brett Favre, where he's going to give the other team a chance to win. Which is whether or not the other team takes advantage of it, as when it comes down to. And case in point, look at last week with the Niners dropped pick, which I don't blame on that guy because there was still 9 minutes to go in that game. That's not the reason the Niners lost, but he's got that mentality of
that pick ends the
he's
game.
Going to throw. He's got a couple of oh-no throws in him too. So my two big thoughts is pretty much in the trenches. Like, would we agree that the Rams have a better D-line than the Bengals have offensive line?
Yes, I think so.
And would we agree that the Bengals' defensive pressure is key in stopping Cooper Kupp and OBJ?
Yeah.
Right there is what I think this whole game depends on. They need to give Burrow at least a couple seconds because they gave up 9 sacks earlier this postseason. So they're already going to be doing the quick passing game. So if the Rams could get pressure on Burrow, Bengals are in trouble. And Just on the flip side, if the Bengals cannot get pressure on Stafford, Kupp and OBJ are going to eat their secondary apart. And it's got nothing to do with their secondary. Secondary is decent, but those two guys on the same team is like Jordan and Pippen.
And this is another great storyline. Like OBJ's been waiting for his shot to get here, and he just knew that he was on the right team with the right pieces around him. He's an all-star. And LA was built for the Super Bowl. They literally built themselves to play in big games like this. They are an all-star team, and they have a new stadium, and they want to attract LA celebrities, and they want to be the Lakers of the NFL. And to be the Lakers, you have to win. You have to win. So there's, I think, a lot more pressure on the Rams to win this game than there is on the Bengals to lose this game.
Oh, pressure is 100% on the Rams.
And I think that here's another interesting thing. I think because they're such solid passing games, neither team has a very strong run game. They have Cam Akers, who came back from injury. They got Sonny Michel, and they're relying on some of those pieces. And then was it Henderson? One of their other running backs got hurt. LA's running backs got hurt early on.
Oh, why am I drawing a blank of who that is? But I know who you're talking about. Yeah. But even that's funny because I would say the Bengals probably have the better running game.
They have Joe Mixon,
but the Rams have the better run D, so it kind of balances out.
The Rams' run D will just shut him down, and Joe Mixon's not the kind of runner that he can overcome that we've seen. So I think the margins will also decide this. If Cincinnati can get some of the either some short passes to Mixon, and move the chains that way, or just if they can get any kind of run game going, they can dominate the clock, and that's one of the keys in which you can win this game, just on the margins if you can get a run game going.
If they being the Bengals, if they can find a way to not have Burrow quote running for his life, they got a shot. If he's running for his life, it's over. Yeah, I think that's what it basically comes down to.
And the only way they're going to open that up is they're going to have to make some movement with some runs. They're going to have some solid runs, and they're going to have to establish that.
Like quick passes, early. Like you said, mixing out of the backfield, wide receiver screens to chase. Like he can't hold the ball for 3 seconds.
Can't hold the ball for 3 seconds. You do not have that opportunity when you have, Von Miller and Aaron Donald in your face like that. But again, with LA, their run game is fumble prone. Like they put themselves in precarious situations because when they run the ball, they can't hold the ball all the time.
Everything we have said goes out the window once turnovers come into play. That we're all assuming that execution goes well. If there's fumbles and interceptions, turnovers, missed kicks, all that goes out the damn window.
Safeties, or run, you get a good. I mean, you get yourself a nice little run back for a touchdown with a kickoff. Boom, whole new game. So,
okay, so the golden question: who you got in the Super Bowl?
I really want to say Cincinnati. Like every fiber of my being wants to say Cincinnati. I feel like the Rams are going to win it. I feel like this is going to be that Denver year, that last Peyton Manning Super Bowl, where like Carolina came in and they looked so dangerous, and it was like, oh, this is going to be a great game. And that Denver defense just took over right from the start. I feel like this LA defense are monsters. They're just monsters. And
that's kind of where I'm at too. Like, and it's not even like, I think the Cincinnati offense and the Rams defense, for all intents and purposes, let's just say they balance each other out. Let's say it's kind of a push. The other side, I just don't see how the Bengals can stop the Rams offense unless it's Stafford chalking up the ball. So when you have to rely on turnovers to basically be in the game, that tells me you're kind of not going to be in the game. And I have flashbacks of last year with Mahomes running for his life, and I'm afraid that's what's going to happen here. Because every game the Rams have played so far, especially in the postseason, has been the D-line winning the game. So, yeah, I got the Rams too, but I'm with you. My heart will be with the Bengals, and I've never actually wanted to be proven more wrong in a game than this year.
I'll be thrilled. This is This is the first game in a while that hasn't been a Patriots QB or a former Patriots QB starting a Super Bowl. So
here he goes.
It's a new experience for me for a while.
Well, you know what? There's only one thing I want. I want next year the trend of hosting the Super Bowl has the same team as is in the Super Bowl.
Oh, where is it next year? Where's
the Super Bowl next year? So I'm kind of hoping that next year the trend continues. But that apparently requires us to pay Kyler Murray. But I digress. So
I hope for your sake and all our sakes who enjoy good, enjoyable football that Kyler gets his money.
Yeah, that would be the most Cardinals thing in the world, is we finally get somebody decent at quarterback and we don't want to pay him. Okay, that is our show this week. Big thanks to my buddy Benari Poulten. I hope I can call him a buddy. I don't know if I pissed him off with earlier or not, but we'll find out. But Benari, if people want to find more of you, where can they find?
Buddies for life,
there we go.
Man.
I appreciate it, man. But if they want to find more of you, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Benari Lee, BENARILEE.
So, with that, Mr. Poulten, thank you for your time.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And I'm still waiting for you to tell me that you are, second cousins with the GOAT.
Oh, you must listen to the show. You know how many times I've said my second cousin Tom on this show? I've ran that joke into the ground for 22 years. What are you talking about? You're late to that party.
I'm just sad. I just want it to be true.
If you want it to be true, imagine how bad I want it to be true.
But thank you for having me. This was a blast. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time, my man.